Okay, we're recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm doing another episode in this series, How to Save Your Life, Stories of A Course in Miracles and the transformation that it has offers people. Today, I'm talking to Betsy Schreyer, and Betsy's here because on our live stream on Sunday, we take questions, and Betsy's question was not fear of the afterlife or communicating with spirit. It was about fear of actually coming out and talking about what she practices and what she knows. And so an idea dropped into my head, and I said, well, Betsy, you've got the perfect place to come out. Why don't you come out and talk about it on YouTube? And so that's why Betsy's here today, is to face that fear of external judgment. And we can go into the idea of, how our mind limits us by creating fears. So welcome, Betsy, and thanks for facing your fear. You're coming out today.
Coming out of the closet. So yes, I am. And I thank you, Tina, so much for inviting me to do this. And I am committed to being the light, not hiding my light anymore. And so this is a major step for me. If I go into lizard brain, I may out of fear, but I don't think I'm going to, because I'm so happy to be here.
You don't seem like you're chewing your fingernails or anything. And of course,
there's nothing else to chew.
Yeah, and of course, me, like you've spent time with me listening.
I have. Yeah.
So it's like we know each other. I don't know you, but you know me.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a few structured questions in the beginning.
And I have Delphi here too. I have a little wooden Delphi.
Oh, burner. That's awesome.
From Switzerland. Isn't that sweet?
Yeah, that's sweet.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So the first question is, how long have you been doing A Course in Miracles?
I have been doing the Course in Miracles now for 3.5, almost a half year. Yeah, as of June, it would be 3.5.
Right. So you started with the lessons, the text. How did you begin?
Well, in 2020, late 2020, I was working on a project with my friend Susan. We're here in Winter Park, Florida, and Susan and I were talking about religion, and she said, "Well, my beliefs are, they're a little bit different than the traditional Christians." So we started talking, and then she told me about you. And how you were bringing through Jesus. And I was like, what do you mean bringing through Jesus? Wait a minute, what? And then she said, and she explained everything to me about you. And something in me just went, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. And I want to just preface this by saying that for about 2 years on and off, I've been asking myself, being a at that time Catholic Christian, previously evangelical Christian, I had been asking myself, what is the gospel? What is the good news? Like I've lost track of it. I don't see it anymore. And so I had been asking myself that question. And so when she said, yes, she actually brings through Jesus, I was, of course I was skeptical. And then we started talking about it.
I was too when it all started, trust me.
I'm sure. So anyway, then I listened to 40 Days and 40 Nights with Jesus. And I have to say, there's a scripture in John, in the Bible, that says, "My sheep know my voice." And I've always known, Jesus always says, you will know the tree by its fruit that it produces. And when I heard her say that, I thought, I'm not afraid. I know, I trust my own discernment. And so I listened to the 40 Days and 40 Nights, and I remember listening to it the first time, and if I end up crying, it's just, and I said, Jesus, that is you, that I know your voice, and that's you. it's the voice of love.
Yeah, it's very loving.
It is the voice of commitment to who we are. And that's why he came. And I, so then she said, I'm going to start a new cycle of listening to the Course in Miracles together. So you do the one lesson on the 365 lessons, and then you come through, on the videos. And she said, would you like to join me? I'll send you the videos every day. And
Cool.
I said, sure. This was after I did the 40 days and 40 nights, and I started writing, and I was journaling, and it was very exciting. And I said, yeah, I'd like to do this. And then I started. And so each year we have a little group now of a small group of women. MC was on your Costa Rica retreat. Mm-hmm. And she's one of our group members here. We have a little group that we get together and support each other through the teachings of the Course. And so anyway, I joined the group, and 3 years, we're now 3.5 years in. So
you do the lessons each year?
I do the lessons, and I've also read almost all of the Course. Sometimes I just go and I reread certain sections and highlight, make notes.
Yep. Okay. All right. So that was the second question, was why did you start? So for you started because you'd kind of lost track a little bit of the reason for being a Christian in a way, because I actually don't necessarily define the Course as being a Christian, because, and this is something that you wanted to you mentioned that you want to talk about, that it actually really is, it really turns traditional Christianity on its head.
Yes, it does. And I think that's when I was bringing up the fear that Jesus then addressed, it was so to answer your question, I had been looking for essentially the Jesus.
Yeah.
See, can I just go into it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. No,
okay. All right. So when I was 18 years old and in college, at a state college in Illinois, I was I had seen a lot of the ugly parts of humanity there, and not just the drinking, but the just aggression and that sort of thing. And I had a room, a night to myself in my room, and I had been talking to a friend who was telling me a little bit about Christianity, and I was sitting in my room. I'm going to just nutshell it, but I felt the presence of Jesus in the room. I was sitting alone in my dorm room, and I was feeling the sadness, I think, of what I was hearing outside. It was a Saturday night, and I didn't feel like going out. I had enough of it all. And I heard, I just could hear people swearing outside and things like that. And I just sat there, and I felt the presence of Jesus in the room. And I felt like he was saying to me, the pain that you feel right now, I understand. And a few days later, I was also questioning in my mind, what even is sin? And it was a beautiful spring day, kind of like what's happening right now on the earth. And I was, or in the Northern Hemisphere, and I was walking by a woman, or another student, she was coming my way, I was going her way. And I looked at her. It was such a beautiful day, and I felt uplifted, and I really was resonant with what happened with me, and I felt Jesus. And I looked at her and I smiled, and she averted her eyes and looked away. And in that moment, I felt another, what I call now a drop-in, an intuitive voice that said, that is sin. Sin is the state of believing you are separated. And I knew then that I was having a relationship with Jesus. So long story short, many decades. So I started going to, first it was Pentecostal. Then I was just trying to find Jesus out there, and I went Pentecostal, I went to Episcopalian, I went Baptist, from place to place to place. I was baptized. I had all of these different, I'm really nutshelling this, but I had all these different experiences looking, and of course read the Bible cover to cover, particularly Jesus's words over and over. I transferred from the state school to Wheaton College, which is an evangelical college in Illinois.
Mhm.
And my parents were willing to pay for it. I studied Christology, Christian literature, and Christian education. I was really searching.
Mhm.
And then when I got on my own, got into college, I just kept being reconnected to different churches. Finally ended up in a really open Catholic church, and then came here to Florida eventually to marry my husband, and was at a Catholic church for a long time here, even brought my daughter up through it. And honestly, I still was asking the question, I don't quite understand what the gospel is, because we're talking about a God who had to punish his son for our sins. And the quote unquote mystery of faith started not making any sense to me.
To
And
me,
then,
that has never made any sense.
right.
Like,
See, but I would,
my mind listens to that,
mm-hmm.
and then I'm like, it just doesn't make any sense
Right.
at all. Doesn't make
Right.
sense.
And I defended the faith very hard. My husband would say, well, don't you really think that there's many paths to God? And he's, cultural Catholic. And I'd be like, no, there is one path to God, and it is through belief in, the whole thing.
The spiel, yeah.
So when I heard Jesus's voice and the Course in Miracles, and I realized, wow, these are the lost red letters. The red letters are the letters of Jesus in many copies of the Bible.
Yeah.
This is the lost not lost, but this is the red letters connected together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is it. And I really started, I would just oftentimes listen to you channeling Jesus, and I would just start crying. I'd be like, this is you. And then I realized at first I was saying, this is you, Lord. And then I heard Jesus once saying, I am your older brother.
Yeah.
I am your older brother. And he said in the scriptures, all these things that I do, you can do as well.
Mm-hmm.
You are the light of the world.
Yeah.
And when he said things like, now what he said in the Bible, what's remaining, is illuminated for me in a major way. For example, when he says things like, love your neighbor as yourself. I hear that now as love your neighbor as one being with yourself.
Because we
are one being.
Yeah.
We are one. We are all. And then the other thing that was huge was the sin is the perception, that I got early on, that I've always believed that it's how we perceive. It's a mistake. It's a mistaken thought. And the Course talks about that there is no sin. There's actually you're just making mistakes. It's like you're this pure holy vessel, and you have mistaken thoughts, many of them. And the indoctrination of our world, not just religion, but the indoctrination of our world into mindset of separation and war and everything like that, I realized I did, and we all do need to recondition our minds. We need to rethink. We need to repent. Repent actually means rethink.
Oh, yeah. See, it's so interesting to me that in traditional Christian teachings, those little nuggets are there, but then they're surrounded by other things that aren't true.
Right.
And in the Course, he redefines all of these things to the original meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is no judgment. And like forgiveness, the idea of forgiveness is us recognizing that there is no other. So if you say something horrible to me and it makes me feel bad, for most people, forgiveness of that is impossible given the way their mind is structured. But as we learn through the Course that, you're a character in my mind, if I attack you, I literally am attacking myself. And it's such an interest, the concepts in the Course. I remember early on thinking, oh my God, this answers all the questions. It answers all the questions about death, sickness, and all of that stuff that in more, because I went on a hunt in my 20s. I went to church a couple of times, but I mean, I was out of there in 5 minutes. I was like, this is not for me. But it answered those questions about, why is the world such a mess if God created it? You know,
Right.
who is this devil? Where is this devil? It's so interesting to me that all of the teachings just give you all the information you need to live a good life.
That's right. And it also squares up who we actually are.
Yep.
We're expressions of God, and God is love. There is no sin. Love does not recognize sin or darkness of any kind.
Yeah.
Therefore, we, in a sense, return to, through this course process, we shed those layers
Yeah.
of, and I'm seeing, I mean, it's happened in so many instances in my personal relationships. I've also been able to drop the fears that were embedded in me through Christianity, the fears of the other side of the veil.
Right.
My uncle just passed away a couple days ago,
Okay.
and I was able to ask my guides, is he available? Because he had some memory loss, and so I wasn't able to talk with him.
Mm.
I wasn't able to see him. He's been, really, really sick in Texas, so far away. Was never able to get there to just, be with him in his it was 2 years ago, last time I saw him. So anyway, sure enough, he was able to come through, and I was able to say, so it's really different on the other side, isn't it? Because he had been one of those, seniors that, when he was essentially convalescing, was sit in front of Fox News and listen to all that heaviness and the darkness and the drama, and you'd get all worked up. And it makes me sad. It's like, why are we putting our elders in front of these dark things? Yeah. So, but anyway, I was able to talk to him, and I've been able to commune since breaking down and letting go of those barriers. I've been able to commune, and I do use something that is so anti-evangelical Christian, which is pendulum. Right. I actually started, it was a friend of mine in California, and she and I don't know how much time we have, but it's really the dropping of the guard and the dropping of the defensive-ness and the fear of the other side is huge for me, because my life has opened up in so many multiple dimensions. I now accept and understand that I know how many incarnations I've had on this earth. I know what I got out of different incarnations, in particular one where I left with a lot of anger and a lot of persecution, put it that way. I was persecuted for my beliefs, and as a woman, and I had to do some forgiveness work even back then, because I held on to that fear. And that's part of me unraveling this fear. So again, I just thank you. But yes, I was able to, this is one of my guides that I work with, so that when I have an intuition, or when I'm writing an automatic writing, a message coming through, from my oversoul, from the other realms, it's, first of all, it's pure love. So anybody who is afraid, do not be afraid of love. It is love coming through, and trust yourself. I think it was Carol the other day on the live stream who said, I am a holy being, and I am protected, and I can trust that. We have so much fear as Christians have so much fear. And I say we because I have a lot of compassion for people who seek God and are love and really want to grow in love and grow in God.
Genuine seeking,
Genuine seeking, like I was. And I trust that if they really are open, and they really keep their heart open, and they trust the discernment of the Holy Spirit within, and within themselves, they will open their hearts, and they will be stunned at what they discover through the course. I mean, and how they heal. I have healed so much unforgiveness, and then even just with the live stream, learning how I projected my fear of what other people would think.
Yep.
You know, how it was a form of projection. So here's the thing, forgiveness is accepting our oneness, right? It is accepting our oneness, and it is the opposite of judgment, right?
We're relinquishing any attack
Relinquishing
of ourselves or anybody else.
Attack on anybody and anybody else. And when you release that judgment, then you are able to also see where you are projecting, you know, onto other people, things that we need to take ownership from and then be freed from, so that we can be happy.
Yeah.
No one who judges is happy. Look around, you know, in your life. Everybody who judges is a miserable person. Yeah. They don't live as long. They don't enjoy their lives. They don't have joy.
It's very interesting to watch how the news is manipulating constantly the good side and the bad side, you know, whether it's the vaxxed or the unvaxxed, whether it's Russia or Ukraine, whether it's Gaza or Israel, it doesn't matter. The same message of judgment and separation is constantly being injected into people's minds. And unfortunately, when people's minds are not trained, they don't have the ability to truly discern, oh, this is another form of separation.
Yeah, here it is again.
Here it is again. It's just got different labels. And where I truly, truly saw this was the day that COVID ended, Ukraine started. It was literally like they said, we're not talking about COVID anymore on Tuesday. And literally Wednesday was when the war started. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Talk about blatant.
Right.
So blatant. And
blatant.
So I've not looked at one single picture or one single newscast about the Ukraine war, because it was so clear to me in that moment. This is the same thing. We're fooled because the form changes.
Right.
And this is the Buddhist idea of Maya being the problem, so deceptive, because form it tricks us into thinking it's a new thing, but it's not a new thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the thing I love about the Course, and, you know, referring to the lessons, is Jesus has said very clearly, I had an interview a few weeks ago, and they said, if you have to tell people one thing right now, what would it be? And he said, if you don't own your mind, somebody else will. And that's what he said is the most important thing for us to understand. And of course, before you start the lessons, most of us don't own our minds.
Oh.
We're just full of indoctrination from, some of it's good, some of it's
conditioning and indoctrination, 100%.
That was what he said, the most important thing. And so that's kind of why I do these interviews, is to kind of get that message across, which is, you're just training your mind with the lessons. So what was your experience of the lessons? You're doing it in a group. Do you find them difficult, overwhelming, or do you enjoy them, or how do they feel for you?
Well, honestly, the lessons in and of themselves, I've never done them without the secondary piece from the Year in Forgiveness, your book.
Okay.
I've always had the lesson, and then let's see what Jesus has to say today.
Yeah. Which is why he gave it to us. I mean, it's to be used. There's nothing wrong.
Yes, and it really connects it. It makes that bridge from the lesson, which are beautiful, and sometimes a little bit tricky in terms. I mean, you always hear that, but it makes that bridge to our everyday life. And so we talk about it in our monthly group, but we mostly just support each other out there on the skinny branches, and we call it the skinny branches. Okay. But my branches with the pendulum are I think some of the most skinny of our group, but they also, everybody is very, very open. But I wanted to share this with you just in case. I think it's important that I share that a big part of the course opening up was the intuition that I've been able to develop. Yeah. I had a friend who was a Reiki. She didn't know she was a Reiki healer, but she's been told, I'm a Reiki healer. She's healed herself, healed her sister, and then she was working with me. And this was right around the time I was starting the course. And I had this sense, like so I was writing already a little bit, automatic writing. And I had a sense drop in that said, she had her hand on my head. And I had this feeling like I had this very strong drop in that said, we are healing your right brain. And sort of, reconnecting you to your right brain. And I think I take that to mean we're opening up the intuitive side of you. And so how I use the pendulum is to connect to the intuition that is coming through, so just to know, did I get this right? Am I reading this right? Because I don't have that ability to do what you do, trance channel, where it just comes out. And you just step back and, so it's really, I've also, like I said about my uncle, I've been able to use it to connect. I don't know if you guys can see. This is Zhuang. This is my primary guide. Her name is Zhuang Tai. And she and I actually had an incarnation together 15,000 years ago in mainland China. And her full name is Li Zhuang Tai, but my Chinese friend, I told my Chinese friend, I said, I had this dream, sort of made up a little white lie there, about this person named Li Zhuang Tai. And she said, oh, would you like me to spell it out for you? Li is the last name in China. Right. So I had only done it by literally going through the alphabet. L, A, B, C, D, E, no, yes, no. And the pendulum would say, so Zhuang Tai, can you show, like, when you're enthusiastic about something, can you show Tina? So I don't know if you guys can see my hand holding. I'll sit back a little bit. So I hold my hand really steady. And when there's an enthusiasm about something, like about me talking to you, for example, I get a really strong energy that comes through, and it's absolutely remarkable. And it helps me to know, to sense the energy of, what is happening. It's the same thing. I also am in communication with my grandmother Perkins, Grandma Perkins, and I use a little key for her on a chain. Okay. And she taught me how to speak to trees. Okay. I know it sounds crazy, but
it sounds crazy. Channeling Jesus, speaking to trees.
It all does. No, Grandma's very excited, obviously.
We have to accept that people are going to have this reaction, right? And it's okay.
Yeah. And, it is okay. I'm not going to hide my light, and I'm not going to hide what's happening and how beautiful it has been. I wish I could field questions from skeptical individuals someday, but honestly, there's a tree in our backyard. And I learned its name is Susie. But before that, the first thing that came through, and this is where I said, Grandma, did I just hear this correctly? And she said yes. Was did I just hear that? Because she wanted me to go out in the backyard. So I went out in the backyard. I thought it was going to be like some, I was getting downloads from the sun or something like that. Yeah. But no, it was the tree. And I was like, the tree? And she said, yes, the tree. And then I was like, okay. And I said, it's a crepe myrtle. You want me to sit in front of the crepe myrtle? Yes. The first thing that came through is, I am not a crepe myrtle. I'm not a crepe myrtle. And I was like, oh, okay, you're not a crepe myrtle. You are, that's the label that you've put on me. Mm-hmm. And every tree and everything is the labels that you guys have put on us. You actually don't know what we are for. You don't know who we are. Okay. And so from there, I have learned a deep, deep respect for nature and for the elements that I never had before. That's just an example. For water.
Well, too, is what Jesus, on Sunday, he was very, very clear that the whole nature thing is much more important than we've ever been told. That communing with, being out in the nature. I mean, he said, you've got to be outside as many hours a day as possible. And he's saying that we think of this as, a little hobby, or, I should go for a walk. That's a healthy thing to do. He's like, no, this needs to be part of your spiritual practice and a big part of your practice. So for me, It's manifesting in the form of gardening, where I'm obsessively gardening. You know, I have 3 acres and it's a lot of work. I spend 3 or 4 hours a day out, you know, in nature, in my garden, planting and building gardens. And it's not optional for me right now. And what he said is that it's part of my healing process, and the interaction that I'm having with Mother Earth is beneficial to both of us, because I love my garden. I'm putting love into the ground with the plants
Yes.
and everything, right? It's a real love match, but it also, for me, takes me out of that neurotic Western woman mind where, for example, for me, I've always had intense body issues and body dysmorphia and that kind of thing. So when I'm gardening, my mind is clear of all of those distortions. I'm interacting like in a love frequency, right? But he's
Exactly.
clear that nature's far more important than we've been taught. And of course, it makes sense, because what is our society doing? It's destroying nature and urbanizing everybody so they don't have a garden, so they
Yes.
don't have access to these things, right? So it's very
Yes. Yeah.
clear that it's part of that separation program, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also a big gardener, and I am in great joy when I'm out there in the, you know, in the dirt with my dirt under my nails, like I heard you say.
Yeah, I have a pretty bad
Yeah.
manicure. I always have a pretty bad manicure.
Same
Hey,
here.
is there any other transformation you'd like to share that you've experienced since you've been doing A Course in Miracles, where you can see that it's really shifted your consciousness?
Yeah, I think so. There's many. There's so many. It's
Mhm.
almost
Yeah, we
it's
could talk
almost
about that,
overwhelming.
and that's the truth of it. Once we start talking about these things, it's
I actually don't know where let me just put my glasses on, take a look at. I think the biggest part is, you know, where because I have great relationships, and I have noticed that my relationships and even my relationship to things like my work has shifted. There is peace that really, it is that peace that transcends understanding, that infiltrates everything. I would like to say that one of the things I also learned from the Course, that we are powerful creators.
Yep.
That we create with our thoughts, that our thoughts are not private. They actually are, and I know this is all over the internet, manifestation and this kind of thing. And there's a reason for that, you know, the law of attraction, you know, that our minds send out messages or frequency, like turning a dial to the frequency, and we receive back what that frequency is. May not look exactly like what we put out, but it's on the same frequency.
Yep.
And that was a huge learning for me, and it's reinforced in many ways throughout the Course. And the fact that we are powerful creators also implies that if we're not consciously creating, then we're miscreating all over the place. And that is why we can look into our world and see things like war and things of dark frequency, because human beings are made in the likeness, in the image of God, right? And so
Yep.
we have that creative capacity. That was a huge thing for me to stand back and go, oh, because people often ask the question, well, you know, God must not be a loving God because God created this world. And look at it. It's a mess. We're a mess. We're sinful and we're a mess, and the whole world is a mess. But if you
Yep.
really look, you can see our frequency in a frequency of fear and judgment is what's holding the world in that space. And that's why it's so important for us to get this message out, that we need to shift our consciousness. And anybody who says this is new age, no. This is ancient wisdom that was covered up.
Yep.
It's been covered up for thousands of years by entities who really don't want us to be in that joyous space, because it's easier to control people when they're afraid.
Yep.
Not to be conspiracy theory or anything, but you know,
No, not to, you know, I mean, it's so interesting how
it's the truth.
pervasive these messages are these days, whether it's, you know, the law of attraction, But the thing that was so very clear to me, because I was very much an Abraham Hicks student before I started channeling. I'd listen to them. But the thing that's so clear to me is the unconscious judgments and fears that we're constantly indulging in,
Yeah.
which are pervasive and out of our awareness. So you can be sending loving thoughts to someone or abundance thoughts somewhere, but if your mind is contaminated with fear of love, fear of financial fear, all of these things, that one thing that you're sending out consciously is not enough to counteract all of those negatives that are coming from the unconscious. And that's where the course works, of course.
Yes.
It's working through thoughts, but it's starting to reveal, and this is one of the things that I think a lot of people say when I talk to them about beginning the course, is they say, I had no idea how judgmental I was.
Mm-hmm.
You actually start training your mind. You actually start thinking, oh my God, I am attacking people all the time. I'm judging myself all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
All the time. And judgment, in one of the first books, I think it was Ananda that said, judgment is like an umbrella, that the thought processes of judgment are like an umbrella that are preventing God's love from getting to you. It's judgment. And that's what forgiveness does. Forgiveness takes the umbrella away.
Yeah.
But this routine judgmental thinking is the barrier. And it's so important for people to understand that, because forgiveness is the last thing your ego wants to do. It does not want to relinquish guilt and judgment. It doesn't. Which means you're like, oh, the ego doesn't want to let that go. That means it must need it. And that's
it needs it to continue
the
separation story.
Yeah.
And so as long as we're projecting, as long as we're in fear, and as long as we're in judgment, and as long as we're projecting onto other people, that's one of the most powerful things that Jesus said to me and to everyone on the live stream after my question about fear, or my statement about fear. He basically said, and separation, if you continue to project, we're pushing other people away, separation continues.
Yeah.
It is our form. We appear to be separate from one another.
Yep.
So,
we're swimming in separation, and it takes discipline and practice to rise above the battleground, which is what Jesus says, right? And this is what the training program is. It's a training program to get you above the battleground, so that you look at it and go, oh, I don't want to play in there anymore. And peace is above the battleground. And it's interesting that the wars are such a big subject right now, because it's so symbolic of everything, right? They're bad, and people are being pulled into this division and guilt and judgment. I'm like, oh my God, please don't watch television.
Yeah, please go outside.
Please. Go outside, plant a tree. Go outside and
connect with a tree.
Yeah, and go outside and walk your dog. Like
walk your dog. Yeah.
Be where you are, and then look for the war in your own mind, because that is where it starts.
Yeah, true.
War in our own mind, right?
Yeah, it does. One of the things that helps me the most is just to tell myself, I am an eternal spiritual being having a physical experience right now. And I'm learning a lot. And it also lets you off the hook. I think people are also afraid to acknowledge the judgment within, because you're so used to condemning yourself. It's like, I don't want to condemn myself for one more thing. Oh, now I'm judgmental. And I'm fear-based. Oh, great. So I have that too to deal with. No, it's like, no, it's just a mistake. It's just a mistake in thinking.
Yeah. And we aren't judged.
And the minute you relinquish it, the minute you notice it, and you just notice it, and you intend, and you choose the opposite, you choose love, freedom sets in. And it also has a quantum impact.
Yes.
In this world. And that's the other thing the course talks about, is the quantum impact. It doesn't use the word quantum per se, but it talks about the instant impact on your brothers and sisters. That took me a while to understand, that the impact on the brothers and sisters, on the rest of the world out there, including even on nature itself. That when that shift in thinking and releasing the fear and embracing love for yourself, for others,
Yeah, it changes
It
everything.
immediately has a quantum impact.
Yep. And it's interesting because in quantum physics, they talk about that mysterious, or is it the entanglement, where you can have two neutrons or whatever on the other side of the planet, and they're connected. Like, there are these clues that is what's going on. Anyway, okay, so that's great. And finally, why should people undertake this task of doing A Course in Miracles? Like, what if someone says, why should I do this? Like, it seems like a big book and a lot of work. Like, why should I do it?
Well, if you didn't catch it already in this whole conversation, I would say you should do it because we are at the end of a spiritual season. And this is a wonderful opportunity, like never before, to elevate yourself and everybody that you love to an absolutely new and joyous place. Aren't you bored with the judgment? Aren't you bored with aren't you bored with the same old? If you're not, well, then you can just enhance what you already have, that you already love in your life. You will find dimensions opening up and love opening up in ways that you never imagined. If the creator of all that is pure love, then it is, I guess all I can say is it will never tire of providing beautiful new opportunities and new ways to experience that love. That's what I would say. So experience love in all its dimensions.
And a lot of people aren't experiencing that. And I think that's, I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again, because when it was just before I started to channel, I got this knowledge that people don't need to suffer, but they don't know they don't need to suffer. And that was really the motivating factor for me when I started posting videos, was people need to know they don't need to suffer. And I think most people truly don't know that. They truly don't know that.
They truly don't. Yeah, no. I think you're right.
Yeah. Okay, Betsy, well, thank you so much for telling us your story, and thanks so much for facing your fear, and you will your world not collapse. You won't die. And there may be a couple of people that go, oh, that's BS, but you know what? Can't please all the people all the time. And I do believe that it's so important for us to share what we are experiencing so that more people can experience it. So well done, you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.